Jason Statham walked calmly through the massive steel gates of Highfield Correctional Facility. The early morning sun reflected off the polished floors, and the distant clanging of doors echoed through the halls. Though this was his first day, Jason's presence alone drew the attention of everyone in the yard. His calm posture and steady gaze made it clear that he was not just another inmate. As he carried his small bag toward the locker area, groups of prisoners paused their conversations, watching him with curiosity. Whispers spread. "Who's that guy? And he doesn't look like trouble. But something about him." A group of prison bullies led by a tall, brash inmate named Carter noticed Jason immediately. They had a reputation for picking on new inmates, thinking intimidation was the fastest way to earn respect. Carter nudged his friends and smirked. "Looks like we've got a new toy," he said, his voice loud enough for Jason to hear. Jason didn't respond. He simply kept walking, his eyes scanning the yard, observing, calculating. The bullies took this silence as weakness. Carter stepped closer, blocking Jason's path. Well, if it isn't the quiet guy," Carter said with a grin. "New in here, huh? Don't worry, we'll show you the ropes." Jason looked at him, calm and composed. "I'm just here to serve my time. No trouble," he said, his voice steady and even. Carter laughed. "No trouble, you've got spirit, that's cute. Let's see how long that lasts." The other inmates began to gather around, sensing the tension. Phones were nowhere in sight, but everyone knew that a confrontation could erupt at any moment. Some whispered, "Who does he think he is?" while others sensed that Jason was no ordinary prisoner. Jason stopped, set his bag down, and adjusted his stance ever so slightly, enough to show he was alert. Without threatening anyone, his calmness unsettled Carter, who wasn't used to being ignored or underestimated. The crowd leaned in, the air thick with suspense. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Jason didn't need to raise his voice or make threats. His presence alone sent a clear message. This was a man who handled challenges differently, with focus, composure, and skill. The bullies thought they could intimidate him, but Jason's next move would shock everyone in the yard. The prison yard was alive with tension. Jason Statham stood near the benches, calmly observing the bustling activity around him. Inmates were chatting, tossing a ball back and forth and going about their routines. But the group of bullies led by Carter had their eyes locked on him. Carter stepped closer, puffing out his chest. "You think you're better than us, quiet guy," he jeered, blocking Jason's path again. His friends circled, smirking, ready to back him up. Jason's expression remained calm, almost serene. "I'm just here to get through my sentence," he said quietly, his voice steady. "No one needs to get hurt." Carter laughed mockingly. "No one needs to get hurt? That's cute, but in here, you don't just walk around smiling. You learn fast, or you get taught fast." The surrounding inmates paused their activities. Some leaned against the walls, whispering among themselves. Phones weren't allowed, but eyes were recording every subtle movement, every shift in Jason's stance. Everyone sensed that this was the kind of confrontation that would either end quickly or explode. Jason adjusted his footing slightly, positioning himself in a way that was natural but also ready. His posture controlled, his movements minimal but precise. Carter didn't notice the subtle signs of skill hidden behind Jason's calm demeanor. "Hey, quiet guy," Carter barked, shoving Jason lightly. "Don't ignore me, show some reaction." Jason barely moved, letting the push slide off his shoulder. "I'm not ignoring you," he replied softly. "I'm just not interested in trouble." The bullies exchanged nervous glances. It was rare for someone in this yard to stay completely calm under provocation. Carter's smirk faltered for just a moment, replaced by a flash of uncertainty. A few inmates called out from a distance, curious whispers echoing, "Who is this guy?" And he doesn't flinch, that's unusual. Jason's calm composure only made Carter more aggressive. He leaned in, pointing a finger at Jason's chest. "I don't care if you're calm around here. Calm gets you stomped." Jason's eyes met Carter's steady and unshaken. "Strength isn't about shouting or pushing others around," he said quietly. But the firmness in his tone made the circle of bullies pause. The tension was so thick that it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The other inmates leaned in closer, anticipating what would happen next. Jason wasn't just a new face. He was someone who didn't respond like everyone else in this yard. Have you ever seen someone stay calm under pressure, Faye? And tell me, which country or city are you watching this story from right now? Faye, comment below. Carter, feeling his control slipping, tried one last intimidation tactic. He shoved Jason again, harder this time, expecting him to react aggressively. But Jason didn't retaliate. Instead, he subtly shifted his weight, ready to move in a way that was controlled and precise. Not to harm, but to defend himself if necessary. The surrounding crowd of inmates watched in awe. Even from a distance, it was clear. This quiet man wasn't ordinary. There was skill and focus in his every movement, even when he appeared to do nothing at all. For the first time, Carter felt genuine doubt. The confidence he normally carried as the yard's top bully wavered. Jason's calmness was not weakness, it was strength, and it was about to be revealed in a way no one would forget. The bullies think they've cornered him, but what Jason does next will leave everyone speechless. The prison yard seemed to shrink around them. Jason Statham stood with his back straight, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the growing tension. Carter and his gang of bullies had grown impatient. Their smirks had disappeared, replaced by frustration and disbelief. They had expected a quick, easy target, someone to intimidate, and assert dominance over Jason wasn't giving them that. "All right, quiet guy," Carter said, stepping closer, his voice sharp, almost trembling with suppressed anger. "You think you can just walk around here like nothing's happening? You're new, and you don't know how things work. Around here, we decide who's in charge." Jason's eyes scanned the yard, noticing the other inmates quietly stopping their routines to watch the unfolding confrontation. Some leaned on fences, some on benches, but every eye was on him and Carter. He spoke softly, deliberately, choosing every word. "I'm not here to be in charge, and I'm not here to fight anyone," Jason said calmly. "I just want to serve my time and keep things peaceful." Carter's jaw tightened. "Peaceful? You think peace matters in this yard? You'll learn quick. Let's see how long you last." The bullies advanced, closing the space between themselves and Jason. His stance was subtle but controlled, ready to move in any direction without appearing threatening. It was a stance honed from years of martial arts training, balanced, steady, and precise. Every small movement carried intention, though nothing looked exaggerated. Jason's calmness unnerved them further. Usually when someone refused to react, bullies grew bolder. But with him, silence seemed stronger than any shout. Carter shoved him again, a little harder this time, expecting an angry reaction. Jason shifted his weight slightly, absorbing the push without losing balance, his eyes never leaving Carter's. "Why won't you fight back?" Carter spat, frustration now overtaking his aggression. "You're weak, that's what you are." Jason's calm smile was almost imperceptible. "Strength isn't about reacting to anger," he said softly. "It's about controlling it, yours and others." The circle of inmates watching started whispering among themselves. "Who is this guy? He's not scared at all. He knows something we don't." Phones weren't in use, but every person's eyes recorded every movement, every subtle shift in posture. A nervous laugh escaped one of Carter's friends, breaking the tension slightly. "Come on, man, just push him again. He'll snap eventually." Jason tilted his head slightly, observing their patterns. He wasn't trying to intimidate them. He wasn't even angry. But he was aware, analyzing every movement, every gesture. His calmness was deliberate, measured, and infinitely more intimidating than the bully's loud posturing. Then, Carter lunged forward, trying to grab Jason by the collar. In one smooth, fluid motion, Jason stepped to the side, pivoted, and redirected Carter's movement. Not harming him, but demonstrating skill, balance, and control. The other bullies stumbled slightly, surprised at how effortlessly Jason avoided the grab. The crowd gasped. Even the most hardened inmates paused. Jason's movements were precise, almost effortless, and yet powerful. His restraint and discipline were clear. He could have escalated instantly, but he chose not to. A hushed murmur spread through the yard. "He's good, really good. Martial arts, maybe. How did he do that so smoothly?" Carter froze for a split second, his confidence wavering. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just a quiet new inmate. Jason had skill, focus, and control far beyond anyone in the yard, and the calmness, the lack of reaction to their provocations, made him even more formidable. Jason's eyes scanned the yard again. He wasn't here to fight unnecessarily, but he would defend himself if needed. The bullies had crossed a line, and now he was in complete control, not through aggression, but through composure, precision, and presence. If you were in Jason's shoes, would you fight back or stay calm like him? Comment your choice below and tell us why. The tension didn't dissipate. Carter and his gang were stunned, unsure how to proceed. Their usual tactics, loud words, pushing, shoving, had failed. The yard had become a silent arena, everyone watching the standoff. Jason's calmness was magnetic, drawing attention, respect, and fear all at once. The stage was set. The bullies had challenged him. The crowd had taken notice, and Jason was ready to reveal more of his skill, but only when necessary. The next moment would change the entire dynamic in the yard, leaving everyone, especially the bullies, completely shocked. The bullies thought they had the upper hand. But what Jason does next will leave everyone in the yard speechless. The prison yard felt charged with anticipation. Inmates had stopped their routines entirely, forming a rough circle around Jason Statham and Carter. The air was thick, every eye locked on the unfolding standoff. Carter's confidence, which had carried him through countless intimidation attempts, was faltering. He had underestimated this quiet new inmate, and the realization left him tense, jittery, and frustrated. "Come on, quiet guy," Carter shouted, stepping forward aggressively. "Show us something. You can't just stand there all day." Jason remained calm, his eyes sweeping over the circle of onlookers. His voice was steady, composed, but carried a subtle weight that made people pause. "I don't need to prove anything," he said. "Strength isn't measured by anger or fear, it's measured by control." The bullies laughed nervously, trying to mask their unease. But Jason's calm demeanor and precise movements made the laughter falter. He shifted slightly on his feet, just enough to hint at readiness without appearing threatening. His posture was perfect, balanced, confident, and prepared for any sudden movement. Carter lunged again, this time attempting a grab at Jason's shoulder. But Jason reacted instinctively, stepping to the side and using a small pivot to redirect the motion. Carter stumbled forward, thrown slightly off balance. But Jason didn't push him down or strike him. He simply demonstrated skill, control, and precision. The surrounding inmates gasped, whispers spreading through the crowd. "Did you see that? He moved like he's trained. Really trained. Martial arts, maybe?" Carter's friends, seeing their leader falter, tried to intervene. One of them lunged at Jason from behind, hoping to catch him off guard. Jason pivoted again, his movements fluid, his balance impeccable. He used the momentum to guide the man past him harmlessly, letting him stumble to the side without injury. The crowd erupted in quiet murmurs of admiration. Jason's calm confidence was magnetic. It wasn't just the moves themselves, it was the way he executed them, controlled, precise, deliberate. Every step and pivot spoke of discipline, focus, and skill, but without cruelty or malice. He didn't attack. He only neutralized the threat efficiently and safely. Carter froze, realizing that his usual tactics of intimidation would not work here. He was unaccustomed to someone who could respond without anger, without retaliation, yet still completely dominate the physical space. Jason didn't have to shout, push, or strike. His presence alone conveyed mastery and control. The other inmates leaned in, some mouths open in awe. Even those who had seen violence and intimidation daily were captivated. Jason was calm, yet every movement radiated authority and competence. "Not bad," Carter muttered, struggling to hide his fear. "But don't think this ends here." Jason's response was soft but firm. "I don't want this to end in trouble for anyone, but I will defend myself if needed. That's the only lesson here. Respect matters." A few younger inmates whispered among themselves, "He's like a legend, quiet, calm, and untouchable. I'd follow him anywhere." The yard had transformed. The tension that had been building into a fight was now a mix of awe, suspense, and admiration. The bullies, seeing their intimidation completely fail, took a step back. Carter's smirk had disappeared entirely. He realized this wasn't a man to mess with, not because he was loud or violent, but because he had skill, focus, and unshakable composure. Jason adjusted his stance slightly, a subtle reminder that he could act if necessary. The surrounding crowd noticed the change. The quiet, composed man in front of them had already shifted the balance of power in the yard. The bullies thought they controlled the yard. But what Jason does next will leave everyone's jaws on the floor and turn the entire yard upside down. The tension in the prison yard had reached a peak. The circle of inmates watching Jason Statham and the bullies was completely silent, except for the occasional shuffle of feet and the distant clang of a metal gate. Carter's confidence had vanished, replaced with visible uncertainty. He had tried intimidation, pushing, and threats, but Jason had countered every move with calm precision. Carter glanced at his gang, who now looked unsure. He's good, muttered one of them under his breath. Better than anyone we've seen here. Jason's expression remained calm, almost serene. He wasn't here to fight unnecessarily, but he had made it clear, if provoked further, he would act. And he would act with skill and control. Carter, feeling cornered, lunged forward again, this time with more force, trying to grab Jason aggressively. But Jason anticipated the move. With a subtle pivot, he sidestepped, redirected Carter's momentum, and guided him forward. Not striking him, but using his energy to unbalance him. Carter stumbled, barely catching himself against a nearby bench. The crowd gasped. You're faster than I thought," Carter exclaimed, regaining his footing but clearly rattled. Jason spoke softly, his tone calm but commanding. "It's not about speed or power. It's about precision, control, and awareness. That's what keeps you safe and keeps others safe." Another of Carter's friends tried to intervene, swinging a makeshift fist at Jason in one smooth motion. Jason blocked the swing with his forearm and shifted slightly, allowing the momentum to carry the man past him harmlessly. The man stumbled and landed lightly on the ground unharmed but visibly shocked. Whispers ran through the crowd. "He's not attacking anyone, but he's untouchable. Look at that control. I've never seen moves like that in here." Jason didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His calmness, skill, and composure were already making their mark. The bully's aggression had completely backfired. The yard was now captivated by Jason's precision, discipline, and quiet authority. Carter's voice trembled with frustration. He knew of this. "You're just a new guy. No one's going to respect you." Jason tilted his head slightly, observing the man carefully. "Respect isn't demanded through fear," he said softly. "It's earned through actions, and through how you treat others." Carter charged again, but this time, Jason's movements were a seamless combination of martial arts technique and defensive mastery. He sidestepped, redirected, and neutralized the aggression without striking. Every movement was precise, fluid, and non-harmful. Yet it clearly demonstrated mastery. Carter and his friends stumbled back, completely overwhelmed by Jason's skill. The yard erupted in murmurs of awe. Inmates who had been hardened by years of prison life whispered to each other, "He's a master. He could take on anyone here without hurting them. He's unstoppable." Jason's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos of the failed attacks. He wasn't showing off. He was demonstrating that skill, discipline, and control were far stronger than intimidation and aggression. His actions spoke louder than any words, and the entire yard recognized it. Carter, now humiliated and exhausted from his repeated failed attempts, took a step back. He could barely meet Jason's steady gaze. For the first time, he understood that this wasn't a man to provoke. Jason had established dominance not through anger or violence, but through control, awareness, and precision. The crowd of inmates erupted in applause and cheers. Phones weren't allowed, but everyone was recording the moment in their minds, fully aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Jason's mastery had turned a tense, potentially dangerous confrontation into a lesson in calm strength, self-control, and respect. The bullies thought they could humiliate him. But when the truth about Jason's skill spreads through the yard, everyone will be left in awe, and even the toughest inmates will show respect. The prison yard, once buzzing with casual chatter and routine activity, had transformed into a scene of awe and quiet reverence. Jason Statham stood in the center, calm, composed, and fully in control. While Carter and his gang of bullies slowly stepped back, their aggression replaced with disbelief. The demonstration of skill, precision, and control had completely flipped the power dynamic in the yard. Carter, usually the loudest and most intimidating inmate, rubbed his jaw and muttered under his breath, I can't believe this. He didn't even hit us hard. And yet, his voice trailed off as he finally met Jason's steady gaze. Jason didn't say a word, but the message was clear. Strength and respect were earned through skill, discipline, and composure, not threats, shouting, or bullying. Around the yard, other inmates began to murmur, whispers spreading like wildfire. Did you see that? He didn't even attack, and we couldn't touch him. That's mastery. Even those who had been hardened by years in the system felt a shift in the atmosphere. The usual hierarchy based on intimidation and brute force had been challenged, and Jason had done it without cruelty or aggression. His calmness was more commanding than any yell or shove could ever be. A few of the younger inmates approached Jason hesitantly. Hey, you're incredible, one of them whispered. How do you stay so calm? Jason smiled faintly. It's not about being unshaken. It's about being aware, being prepared, and controlling yourself. That's what makes you strong, not making others afraid of you. Carter, still recovering from the failed attempts to intimidate Jason, swallowed hard. His usual bravado was gone. He gestured to his friends. Let's just leave him alone. He's untouchable. The crowd of inmates began to applaud quietly at first, then louder as realization sank in. Jason had not only defended himself but had taught an unspoken lesson. Respect comes from integrity, skill, and composure, not fear or aggression. In a subtle but powerful moment, Jason adjusted his stance again, not in threat but in awareness. The surrounding inmates noticed the difference. He could act at any moment, yet he chose restraint. That decision, more than any movement, commanded admiration. What would you do if you saw someone treated unfairly like this? Step in, record, or stay back. Comment below and share your choice. The bullies, now humbled, slowly backed away, muttering apologies or simply remaining silent. Even Carter, who had tried to dominate the yard through intimidation, now approached Jason with cautious respect. I didn't know, Carter said quietly. I thought you'd react like the others we've dealt with. Jason nodded once. I didn't come here to fight, but I won't let anyone disrespect me or others either. Respect works both ways. The message resonated through the yard. Inmates who had doubted the new arrival now looked at him differently. Some nodded in quiet approval. Others whispered in awe. Jason's presence alone had shifted the social dynamics. The quiet, disciplined man had become a symbol of strength without violence. From that moment on, the bullies no longer sought confrontation. Jason's calm mastery had earned him a level of respect that intimidation alone never could. The yard, once tense and volatile, now carried a sense of order, a subtle but unmistakable acknowledgement of skill, discipline, and self-control. Even as Jason walked to a bench to sit and observe the yard, inmates who had once been hostile now gave him space, some even nodding or offering quiet words of respect. The power of composure and controlled skill had made a lasting impression. This wasn't about showing off or proving dominance. It was about demonstrating a principle. True strength comes from self-discipline, awareness, and the ability to act with precision, not out of anger, but out of control and respect for others. The yard was no longer just a place of hierarchy based on fear. It had transformed, at least in part, because one man had shown what it truly meant to be powerful, through calmness, skill, and integrity. Jason has earned the respect of everyone in the yard, but the story doesn't end here. How the rest of the prison reacts will leave viewers amazed and inspired. The prison yard had finally settled into an almost surreal calm. What had started as a tense confrontation now felt like a moment of quiet respect, a shift in the invisible social order. Jason Statham sat on a bench near the edge of the yard, his posture relaxed, yet alert, his eyes scanning the crowd. The whispers, once filled with doubt and ridicule, had transformed into murmurs of admiration and awe. Carter, the leader of the bullies, remained on the other side of the yard. He avoided eye contact but couldn't stop watching. His friends huddled together, speaking in low tones, clearly humbled. The realization had sunk in. Intimidation and aggression had failed, while calm precision and skill had prevailed. Jason had not boasted or struck a single unnecessary blow. His actions had spoken for him. Each controlled movement, each step of defense, each precise redirection of aggression had demonstrated mastery and self-discipline. But it wasn't just about skill, it was about the message he had sent. Respect is earned, not demanded. Even the inmates who had remained neutral now looked at him differently. Younger prisoners whispered to each other, taking mental notes of how a quiet, composed individual could command the yard without raising his voice. One boy muttered, "That's how real strength works. I need to remember this." Jason's calmness had transformed the atmosphere. The once tense yard now had a sense of order, a subtle but unmistakable shift in energy. People moved differently, spoke differently, even walked differently. It was as though the lesson of restraint, composure, and mastery had rippled through the crowd. Carter, finally approaching cautiously, said quietly, I underestimated you, I thought you'd fight like the others." Jason nodded once, giving a small measured smile. "I don't fight to prove anything," he said. "I only act when necessary, and even then with control. That's how you earn respect. Not through fear, but through integrity." The bullies nodded silently. Some offered quiet apologies. Others just stepped aside. The tension that had gripped the yard for hours had vanished, replaced by admiration and a newfound understanding. Even the prison guards, who had been observing from a distance, were impressed. They recognized that Jason had not only defended himself without escalating violence, but had also diffused a situation that could have turned dangerous. His composure and skill had set a standard in the yard, one that even hardened inmates couldn't ignore. As Jason stood and walked toward the exit of the yard, the crowd parted instinctively. Heads turned. Some inmates nodded respectfully. Others simply watched in quiet awe. His actions had left a lasting impression. This wasn't about defeating the bullies. It was about demonstrating what it truly meant to be strong, disciplined, and respected. Jason glanced back once, surveying the yard. The lesson had been learned. Fear and aggression were temporary. Composure, skill, and respect were enduring. He didn't need to prove anything further. His presence alone was enough to command authority without intimidation. If you believe true strength comes from calmness and skill, not anger or fear, type respect in the comments below. And tell us, what would you do in Jason's place? Would you stay calm or fight back? The prisoners returned to their routines, but something had changed forever. The lesson wasn't just about martial arts or physical skill. It was about self-control, awareness, and moral authority. Even those who had once tried to dominate the yard now understood a simple truth. True power lies in discipline, composure, and respect for others. Jason walked through the yard one last time, each step deliberate, each glance measured. The once tense atmosphere had transformed into admiration, curiosity, and reflection. The bullies were no longer threats. They were witnesses to what true mastery looked like. Not aggression, not shouting, but skill paired with calm, unwavering self-discipline. By the time he left the yard, the story of his presence and actions had already begun to spread among inmates and guards alike. Jason Statham had turned a simple confrontation into a lesson that would be remembered long after the day ended. His legacy in the yard wasn't built on fear or violence. It was built on respect earned, composure maintained, and skill displayed with integrity. The power of calm strength had prevailed. The bullies had learned humility. The yard had learned respect. And everyone watching had witnessed the impact of discipline over aggression. If you've been inspired by Jason's calm strength, type respect in the comments, subscribe for more thrilling and inspiring stories, and share this video with someone who needs to see the power of composure and skill in action.